Welcome to Sports Save My Life. My name is Clayton Freck, and I'm the CEO and founder of Angel City Sports. We know the power of sport to change and, in some cases, save lives. We hear these compelling stories every day, and we created this show to share them with the world. Enjoy the show, and remember to like, follow, share, and comment. All right, so today I am joined by a close friend of mine and a close friend of Angel City Sports, Rob Balucas. Rob's a paraplegic and an elite paratriathlon athlete who qualified for the Ironman World Championships in Kona this year. Unfortunately, the event was delayed until next fall. We'll hear more about that. As a result, he's now planning to do his first full-length Ironman, right? This October 24th in Sacramento at the Ironman California. Rob was born in Fresno, California, but raised in Seattle, Washington. As a kid, so he claims, he was smart and studious, but played pickup basketball and wakeboarded with the buds. He earned his black belt in karate as a little 14-year-old, went on to attend Pepperdine University right here in Malibu, and has worked in a variety of industries, climbing the ladder at Nestle, working in real estate, and also in the personal development space. He currently has his own boutique creative agency. And in his early 30s, he got inspired to do triathlons and began training with the Golden Gate Triathlon Club in the Bay Area. One fateful afternoon, while training in Marin, he crashed on a notorious corner and broke his spinal cord. Not one to wallow in his situation, he quickly moved into action and started to figure out how to continue in the sport of triathlon as a paraplegic. Rob doesn't settle, and he quickly has become one of the go-to resources for paraplegics in Southern California who want to get into sports, especially triathlon. He's a coach and mentor and close friend of the family. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you.
All right. So first question for you. What is the title of the show bring up for you?
Sports saved my life. It's funny when I think about that because I don't think of it that way every day. However, I grew up, in a broken household, a term I didn't know until sociology in college, and very unstable in an apartment with me and my mom and two cats. And she put me in karate, which ended up being the most stabilizing thing, in my life, and taught me community, and how to set goals or how to have goals and the discipline to achieve them. And then, as an adult, triathlon was kind of the same thing. Like the adult version of that stability as a kid was that as an adult, triathlon, it kept me, is what I would say. It keeps me sane, sexy, sane, and out of trouble. So I was fit, I was mentally all my energy at a place for all my energy. And it kept me out of trouble because it took up all of my time.
I want to hear more about at least the sexy part of that comment. But all right. So that was great. Who are you in one sentence?
I actually was thinking about this today. My name Robert means bright fame or like shining bright. And
that's what Robert means?
That's what Robert means. Like,
that's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the crazy origin. I was named after my grandfather. And yeah, that's who I want to be. That's who I aim to be, as someone who brings a high vibration, warm vibration to the room whenever I step in.
Dang, that's good. Definitely do that. All right. You mentioned a broken childhood. Mm-hmm. Walk me through that.
Yeah, I was in my dad was the bartender and my mom was the waitress, and they were dating. Mm-hmm. And my mom got pregnant, and they tried to make it honest, lasted about a year. And then my mom had custody, and we moved from like Fresno to Orange County to LA. She met a guy and married him, and he was a bodybuilder. And that's actually an interesting key point. And we moved to Denver.
Mm.
And he was a bodybuilder. They both worked for AT&T. And he said something to the effect of, I'm not going to have a son who's a wimp. And I don't remember him saying that, but my mom distinctly remembers it. And he put me in Taekwondo.
Oh.
And yeah. And then they only lived in Denver for a couple of years. And then they moved to Seattle and almost immediately got divorced from what I remember. And
how old are you at that point?
So I was in third grade, I think. It was like the middle of third or fourth grade.
But your birth father was not in your life.
He's in the picture, but he just was planted in Fresno. He was older. My dad's much older and had 3 kids. I was his 4th kid 15 years later.
I got you. Okay.
And so, and my mom, you know, and the other parts, my mom was bipolar and not diagnosed till I was 17, until my senior year in high school. And she was always known to be a wild card, to say the least. And I mean, my family really was concerned for me when I was born. When I found out that senior year when I was 17, a lot of things came out, like, you know, we were worried about you from the day you were born, from an aunt. And I'll never forget her saying that. I'm like, this pre-exists me, you know, this condition, this problem, this chaos that I was born into is, you know, bigger than me. Like, it was already going on.
They knew your mom. They knew.
Yeah. And for 17 years, they've always known. And I've just had to experience it. You know, it was a connection that I was like, oh, they all knew. And that's why my family really, you know, I have aunts and uncles and grandparents that I was very, very close to, that my cousins don't have that same relationship, because they would take me for weekends to give me a break and give her a break. And I just thought that's the way family is done. Because as a kid, right, you don't have anything to compare that to. I just thought that's how it's done.
And you didn't have siblings growing up, correct? I
have 3 siblings, half siblings on my dad's side, who are 15, 19, and 20 years older than me. So my sister was like a parental figure, because she had a child my age, older than me by 6 months. So my niece, older than me, sister, old enough to be my mom, spent a lot of time there when I'd go visit Fresno. Yeah. And my sister was very much in like the parental role.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So what kind of kid were you? You said, you know, you told me earlier, you're kind of like one of the nerdy, you know, smart kids. What else can you tell me about what kind of kid you were? Yeah.
What blows my mind, and I still think about to this day, is that I was a latchkey kid, like what do you call it? You know, it's the typical 80s. Yeah. 80s, 90s, right? Like, you walk 2 miles to school by yourself, and, you know, like my mom got on the bus
right? Like elementary school.
Yeah. Like my mom got on the bus, you know, she woke up really early, like 6 a.m., you know, she's like going to the bus to go to downtown Seattle and work. And I'm totally responsible to get myself up, brush my teeth, dress myself, walk to school, you know, with friends sometimes and sometimes not. And it was just the way it was, right? Come home, whatever it is, 2, 3 o'clock. Mom's not home till 6 or 7. And like, you know, today that's problematic, right? Back then it was just like, that's how it works. Yeah. And so the point is like, I had all this latitude to do whatever I want. And somehow I never did it. Like, I came home, I did my homework, maybe because my mom yelled at me before I even knew whether or not I did my homework, you know? I don't know what the fear was. I don't know where I got it from, but I came home, I did my homework.
Are you saying you didn't do anything bad? You never?
Yeah. Like, I wasn't out running around being crazy. The most I did was like, I had a string of months where I shoplift Nerds candy from the corner drugstore until I got caught. Then I was like, not doing that again. But I had every opportunity.
How old were you when you're lifting the Nerds?
I feel like that was that predates junior high. I want to say like 6th grade. Because I don't remember being in junior high doing that. But yeah, but it's crazy. So I had every opportunity, but I didn't. I did my homework, and then it was like, get out. You know, I had this innate, like, if I get all my homework done, and then I can go pick up basketball with my friends. Like, that was the weekday ritual. You know, like, homework just in time to go play basketball.
Yeah. And then what was the punishment for getting caught stealing?
I probably got grounded. I don't remember.
It wasn't memorable.
That's the thing. Being a latchkey kid, like your mom says, you're grounded, right? And I'm like, but I'm home anyway. I have everything, I have access to the TV. No one's going to tell me not to. I have everything I need in my room. I have my Nintendo.
Yeah. Like, what does that mean, really?
Yeah. Like, you're grounded. Okay. Let me know when you can enforce that.
That's really funny. So yeah. So your mother was bipolar. Mm-hmm. How did that manifest for you? Like, what were you seeing and experiencing? Obviously, she was working, productive member of society.
One of the things that she broke the mold of a typical person with bipolar is that she kept the same job at AT&T for she retired. I don't know, after like 40 years or something crazy.
Wow.
And so that, like, that's amazing. But also from how in my life, like, it was just explosiveness. I yelled at, like, I have this, the one memory I talk about is like when she got home, karate it could be 40, 45 minutes away, depending on traffic. Cause it was like, literally, I don't know how many miles this is, probably like 30 miles, from Kirkland to Issaquah for anyone in Washington State. And I think it's the 405, and I forget the freeway that connects to Issaquah, but like, I know every tree and new building and construction and new house along that route, because my mom would come home, say I didn't dump the trash. Like, I did my homework. I didn't dump the trash, like my own, one of my few chores for my little allowance. And she'd she'd start yelling about how I didn't dump the trash. I don't deserve allowance. Like, it's every time. Like, I feel like I got this every week for a number of weeks, and it was just the same story. And it was like, and so much so that I tuned out, watched everything on the road. But it went from like, I didn't dump the trash. I don't deserve my allowance. She doesn't have any money. My dad doesn't pay enough alimony, which he did. Whenever she asked for more, he would figure out how to do it. But like, she'd yell about that, and then it would turn into this, like, she'd tune into like the fact that I'm not listening to her. And it would turn into about her relationship with her mother. Then it might turn into tears about how she doesn't want our relationship to be like her parents and her parents. And then finally, thank God, we're at the dojo door and I'm out burning, like, get into my gi, get into my uniform and out, like, bow. And I'm like, I'm in my, I wouldn't call it safe space, my happy place. I'm in my happy place, And I get to beat, I get to fight people, so it's like the greatest, like, way to get it out.
And so when you were younger, did you had heavy involvement from some grandparents and aunts and uncles. So did you see how different your home life was than your cousins and others? Or was it sort of hard to understand the differences?
Well, when I got older, because I stuck with karate from 8 years old till I graduated high school. And like, one of the benefits of everything I just talked about is, like, it forced me to grow up, because I was parenting myself. I realized in high school I was the adult and at home, and it forced me to grow up. It also forced me to ask questions, because my dojo was in Issaquah, which is where all the Microsoft executives live. And so I was like, call me lower middle class, lower middle class, straight into this upper class neighborhood. So I saw a difference, and I had a grandmother and grandfather and all of them, and my sensei, whose curriculum involved telling us, like, you can do anything you put your mind to. And so when I had the example of, like, people who had a nice home, a steady career, like, all these things that were stable and big, as opposed to my situation, it made a dent on me, that, like, there's another way. I went to Fresno. I always say, between my 2 parents, my 4 grandparents, and my sister, I'm the product of 15 divorces.
Really?
Yeah. So
count them all.
Yeah. If you just go, like, dad had this many, mom had this many, you rack them up and it's 15. And so my mom used to say, this is what did it. I always forget this. This is what did it. My mom used to tell me when I said I wanted, like, Air Jordans, she said, you have champagne tastes and a beer pocketbook. And for all the youngsters, pocketbook is a wallet. I had to explain that the other day. What's a pocketbook? But my, and that was my mom's way of saying, you need to dial down your tastes.
Yeah, sure.
But I go over to Issaquah and I'm like, no, mom, like, I'm not going to dial down my tastes. I'm going to get a bigger pocketbook.
Right.
And that decision, like, philosophically has always been my life. Like, how can I get crafty and make it happen? Because when I do, it usually, when I can get crafty and figure out how, it usually ends up happening.
Yeah. Okay, so karate is a bit of an escape for you. You also, at some point, had a good friend group. You mentioned earlier before we start recording that you played a lot of pickup basketball and wakeboarding. Talk to me a little bit about the friend crew and when did that form?
Yeah.
And like, kind of how was junior high and high school? Because those are tough years for all of us.
Yeah. So I remember coming into, like Seattle, is Kirkland, suburb of Seattle is what I call, is where I grew up. Like fourth grade, we arrived. And again, another thing my mom did really well, just side note with my mom, it's like my mom was a real challenge. She still is, but she did some key things very right. One, putting me in karate, the other doing everything she could to get us in Kirkland, in a good neighborhood with good schools, and keeping that stable for me.
So once she got to Kirkland, it wasn't like you were moving around.
Like my mom personally was very volatile, but like if there was one thing that like her goal was to stay, like create enough stable. I'm going to start crying. Create stability for me, give me the opportunities. Because I was an only child, and like that she never had, that, like, just do the best she could for me. Yeah. And so fourth grade, going back to your question, fourth grade, so I went to the same, like, elementary school, junior high, and high school with everyone else. But like, I was a dare kid. Again, I was this like mysteriously like good kid. I'm there's a lot of reasons why, but like, I was a dare kid. So I would go to Fresno every summer to visit my dad. So it was like, I come back starting in junior high, and those kids are drinking, and doing things. And I'm just like, it's not my jam. Like, it was just, I'm going to be a dare kid. I'm not going to drink and do drugs. Go to Fresno the next summer. That peer group's kind of going wild. And then, man, I got to think about this. Probably not junior high, but somewhere around freshman or sophomore year, that group started to solidify. Like, I found it was this cross section of kids who were like, we usually were the most academic, like best grades. Like, I had a 3.8 GPA graduating high school, and it was the lowest of my peer group. My best friend went to Princeton and then Harvard Law, like, he was the number one swimmer in state. Like, he was like the golden child. But the rest of us, like, they were good at most of them. They were good at basketball, and they were the most studious, that we just got it done. And yeah, like, I talk to, a core of them to this day, and still interact. I'm in Seattle. We try to get together. But yeah, really tight, really good, really tight group.
And so that group keeps you out of trouble in high school for the most part.
Yeah, and I got, like, if I go back to karate too, like, my sensei literally had a curriculum, like, in the sports, in the lessons, it was like, if it was a 45-minute class, it would be like warm up, 20 minutes of lecture, and then like this much fighting and whatnot, and it was like all these things. And to be a black belt, it's like, you can't get in fights. If you got in a fight and you're on your way to black belt, you more or less get kicked out of school, because the number one lesson is how not to fight. Yeah.
So it's a little bit of like this sort of almost like a moral buffer for the kids in the program. They want to keep going.
Yeah. It's like, this is a martial art, like, you are learning how to fight. So you have skills that other people don't have. And the biggest skill is a discipline not to use it. And in that style, in our philosophy, it was like, if there's literally no reason to fight unless you're being threatened, or someone around you is being threatened. If you're getting in fights over words, that's ridiculous. You're out. And so much so that one kid in another dojo in our same style, like, let himself get beat up. And yeah, he got cornered and beat up, and he didn't fight back. And it was like, okay, it came back to the rest of the kids. It was like, hey, here's the deal. you got to get out. Like you got to defend yourself, but like, there's a way out of that situation. You got to figure it out, not just submit to being, bullied and beat up. But so when it came to the peer group, it was like, I keep my nose clean. You had to have like a 3.8 something GPA to even test for black belt if you were young and in high school. And I think that translated into me finding this peer group, and this peer, like they were just tight. Our parents were tight. We'd rotate houses and, play poker all night. I had a cup of quarters that started out, half full. At some points when I break for summer, it'd be empty. And other summers it'd be, I'd have 2 cups. I remember I came back one summer from Fresno, and like, there were like IOUs going around for hundreds of dollars. And we play quarters. We're playing quarters, poker or whatever. Somehow, like this one night it exploded and went ape. But they kept, but we're the nerd, we're the academic nerds who are like, we all had it on paper. This person owes this person $500, and da 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 da. And I don't know if they ever worked it out, but
dang.
Yeah.
Those are big dollars back in the day.
It was nuts. It was like, one night, no alcohol. That's how they all remember who owes who what. That's a benefit of not drinking.
I'd be remiss not to mention the organization behind the show, Angel City Sports. Here's a little peek into what we do and why.
Sports can change your life. Let the Angel City Games presented by the Hartford help change yours or future athletes you know for the better. From swimming to track and field, wheelchair basketball, or archery and more, there's something for everyone. We have Paralytic coaches. We have the equipment. All you need is the will to learn, and we will teach you the rest. In 2019, the Angel City Games presented by the Hartford welcomed over 400 athletes, 900 volunteers, and 2,500 attendees. Join us to make the next games our biggest and best yet.
Talk to me about, let's say, high school. What did you want to do with your life? What were you thinking you wanted to be when you grew up?
I wasn't sure. We talked about this before. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a truck driver because I was always going to Texas, to Fresno, to Seattle, and we road tripped it. My grandparents' RV, and I saw those big rigs and always wanted to drive them. But I mean, the closest thing I had was my uncle, who lived in Issaquah near my karate school, was an executive at Nestle, and he gave me a Franklin Covey day planner. The leather bound book this thick. It was, you had to buy the page for every year. You had to buy the set of pages for every year. He gave me that to me in like sophomore and junior year of high school. And it taught me how to organize. Like, I love that thing. And I think that's where I was leaning, just business. And I didn't know what, just, that direction of like leadership, organization, and business. Yeah. So
that's great. It's a great story. It's connective tissue, I think, to your post Pepperdine career. So you go to Nestle right out of college, or fairly close to that?
Yeah. My uncle got me an internship at Nestle for a summer, and that led to, they have what's called the LDP, Leadership Development Program. And there was like, 15 of us hired across the nation, and they have their usual feeder schools like Fullerton. Cornell has a food business program. And so Pepperdine was random, but I was really, I demonstrated everything great at my internship. And so it fed to that. And they asked me, it was funny. They asked me, like, my uncle said, be mobile, be willing to be mobile. Cause he had moved around across the country and back. And I was like, sure. I mean, it's like, the world's your oyster when you graduate college. It's like, what am I gonna do next? I have no idea. And so he said, be mobile. And so on a list, they said, like, are you mobile? Yes. Check that box. What top 3 cities you'd want to go to? I'm like, Boston, New York, Seattle. who knows? I don't care, and the lady asked me in one of my interviews, she said, where would you want to go? And I was like, I think Boston would be cool. And I didn't know if Boston was north or south of New York City at that time.
Really?
I got there and was like, okay, so, New York's that direction. Cause I drove through it a lot. Like my buddy who moved to DC and I were going to meet for the Newport Jazz Festival in Newport, Rhode Island. And it was like an hour and something for me, but it was like 3 hours for him. And we literally bought tickets and everything. And I got there and I was like, oh, you're probably not coming because you don't have a car and you're 3 hours away. He's like, yeah, probably not. And that's how I figured out my job. My geography was driving to, but lesson was driving from Boston to New York or to DC, where two of my best friends moved after college, and driving through 5 states. Whereas, San Francisco to LA is 1 state.
I know. It's wild. The East Coast is kind of crazy that way. All right. So give me, so you go to Nestle, give me sort of the highs and lows of your career, before you started your own agency. So I know you were in real estate, you were in personal development, like sort of just walk me through, some of the highs and lows there, and kind of what were some of the why, right? What are the why along the way?
Yeah. So like the amazing thing with Nestle and the trajectory that I had that some of my peers in those 15 in that program didn't have, was I was just like luck of the draw put under amazing leaders. Okay. The executives that I worked under, I learned a boatload too that I think about to this day when I think, when I'm in business or thinking about conducting myself in business situations. I went to Boston for a year, and it was, had one Boston winter, and I'm like, I'd like to go back to the West Coast, after you graduate the program, then you're off into a position that they basically decide for you. And amazingly, there was a position that was like 4 or 5 years, like beyond me. Like this is a job you get 3 or 5 years into the company. And I was 18 months in, because they couldn't find anyone who wanted to move to the Bay Area and, pay those prices for their family to live. And so they're like, send the kid, you can't say no. And it was on the Costco team. So I was a category development manager, which basically means I was a liaison between all the big, Nestle brands and the team that sold to Costco. My first 6 to 8 months year was like, just, like sinking, swimming, trying to swim and sinking. But I learned the ropes really fast. And it was really cool. Like there was a reorg, and I was put in charge of specifically the pet food brands. So I always joke like, I sell chocolate, but actually Nestle's also a big, pet food company. They own Friskies and Fancy Feed and all that. And basically after the first 3 years, like I had grown the brands 150%, like a 48 million. I was responsible for a $48 million business between Nestle and Costco, and Costco was like a key customer because they were growing. This is the 2000s, early 2000s. And so like having a presence at Costco was like, Switzerland, the home office is watching. And so I had made my way, and then there was a big reorg, like the second one I had seen, and Nestle bought Purina, and all of a sudden I was part of the Nestle Purina's new, Nestle Purina company. Nestle and Purina and Costco had really hated each other, straight up hated each other. The CEO of Purina and the founder of Costco, like
bad blood,
had bad blood, and it trickled down. Like I walked in the door and everyone in St. Louis is like, Costco. And I'm like, we have a $48 million business there that I grew, and you're not going to mess it up, But the thing was, so here's the turning point is they took away my company car because Purina division doesn't have company cars. And that's like a $10,000. I did the math. It's like, this is a $10,000 benefit that like, I'm going to get it for 1 year. I'm going to get like, I don't know what it was, $8,000. And then nothing. Like you're cutting my pay. You're cutting my pay in the Bay Area, and it's like, I was like, okay, if Balucas Inc. doesn't perform for Nestle Inc., like Rob Balucas might make it away, might stick around on his charm, maybe a year, maybe two, but I'll be fired for sure. But for some reason, if Nestle Inc. doesn't work for Balucas Inc., I'm just supposed to, these are like the career guys who are like, you should be grateful you have a job, like you're at a good company with good benefits. And I'm like, So
does that leave you to leave Nestle and get into real estate?
Yeah. And then my counterpart down in Las Vegas was an ex Arizona Cardinals cheerleader. And like you go work with someone for a week, and just learn best practices. So I think I was down there, and I learned that she was brought in from Pepsi, didn't have any history with Nestle, and was hired for $10,000 more than I was. And I was like, I'm not playing this game. Like I've seen 3 reorgs in 5 years. Like one of my bosses said, I want a 5-year commitment from you in this job. And I'm like, I've been here for 3 and I've seen 2.5 reorgs. Like, who are we kidding? He was like, that's a really good point. You're hired. And so I didn't like the idea. And it was the early 2000s and I was playing pickup basketball with a bunch of guys, including realtors who were like, I did the math, like, if I sold 6 homes in the Bay Area where I lived in East Bay, I would make my salary. And these guys were doing 20 on average. And I'm like, anything I do, I'm going to do well. I had a little bit of confidence, like I'm going to succeed at that. Like, so that's what led me to quit and get into real estate was that I'm like, dude, all I have to do at baseline is sell 6 homes. How hard could this be? That's you have to be a really bad realtor to not cross that, barrier. And it was up to me, it was like no more of this, comparison of like being grateful for having a job. It was like, it's based on performance, like if I get it done, I'm going to make the money and there's no upper limit.
And at one point you had a pretty big failure in real estate. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. I mean, it was, so I actually got into real estate investment and I was working for someone else and I starting from like a place where I could barely swim to getting really competent, we raised like $17 million for real estate projects. And I was the linchpin. I was passing contracts. I was verifying wires. I was the linchpin to the whole thing. But this one of these people that just drain you, they're just a suck and they suck everybody. I learned, I looked at it later and I was like, you kind of have a 2 to 3 year lifespan with this person as a leader, before you're out, you can't take anymore. But I learned a ton. And so this is where I got scared is I left, I got a mentor who was a 40-year real estate veteran, raised like $1.2 million in less than 6 months or so, and was like, giddy up, this is exciting. And that was like 2005. And then 2006, and then the, greatest financial collapse since the Great Depression in the 1920s happens. And it was like, I saw it before anybody, not before anybody else, but like investors who were giving us money were starting to like put their wallet back in their pocket and getting really quiet and not returning phone calls. And there were construction delays on these projects. And, we all know the story. It's like, the world collapsed, like literally. And it really bugged me out. Like it really shook me to my core of like, it scared me. I mean, I had to go bankrupt. So there were reasons, but it was like, I can do everything right. And, something can come out of left field and wipe out, everything I've done. Because if I had done what I did 3 years earlier,
not a lesson you had learned in life at that point.
Yeah, like up until then, it was like, I just got to try. Pepperdine was like, left corner, but I just got to put my name in and, and do everything I can and see what happens. And I got in, class president was like, I've never done this before. I don't do this kind of stuff, but like I put my name in because a senior guy said, you should, and then he encouraged me to work for it. And I did, and I got it, it's like studying overseas at Pepperdine. Like, it was like, oh, should you go apply? Got in, and I just learned, it was just, that was a big learning process of like, I just need to put my name in the hat and do everything I can. And up until that point, I was rewarded, Boston, I got to Boston, I got to, Bay Area, it was just like, everything was just like, people, what I thought was like the difference between me and everyone else is no one else is asking. They're too scared of what people might think, and I'm like, and then all of a sudden that, fast forward back to that, it was like, it shook because it was big because it was a stretch for me to say, hey, trust in me to the tune of $250,000.
Sure.
And people are like, Rob, sure. My financial planner, I don't talk to, they suck. I haven't, I've made 1% in 5 years. Like, I trust you. I'd be glad to give you this money. And that built up a lot of confidence. And I was like, holy cow. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like that one investment that was, $500,000, we just had to sell for anything we could get. And that was $70,000. And you're going to get $500 back.
Oof.
Yeah. Like that was the conversations I was having and also not having, like, I got to own that too. Like I was scared, and I hid at times and yeah.
Tough life lessons. And I know you freely share them with everyone. So just thank you for your transparency and your honesty. When does triathlon enter your life? Is this in that real estate time period or after it?
I want to say it's like, so like, I mean, it shook me, like I was really just, I was afraid to commit to anything after that because I was afraid that, things that
not work out. Yeah.
Things that I don't want to put my name on something else, have it implode again. Like and so I was job to job, venture to venture, doing this thing and that thing. And then I was in my early 30s, and I just getting overweight, having too many like, Applebee's lunches, business lunches. And I just needed a goal. Like I said, I just need something to put in front of me to get, fit, going back to sexy, sane and smart, the sexy part.
Yep.
It's like, I just need to get fit. And actually it also answers that. Like, I never thought I was an athlete question is because I never really had the body of an athlete. Like I'm a stocky guy, muscular kind of build, but like, I never had a six pack. I always had a little bit of a belly, that was always self-conscious of at the beach or wherever, like, high school on, I just never had that physique, and so with triathlon, I was just like I'm 5'8", I'm eclipsing 200 pounds. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. And this is like, my trajectory is for that to just go up. And at this point I was kind of just rejecting like all those tropes of like, you wake up one day, midlife crisis, and, you've got a good job, you've got a home, you've got a family, you're providing, but now you're like, I don't know what the meaning is in my life. I'm like, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to, get overweight as I get older into my 30s. So and I had no family or mortgage or anything to worry about. So I was like, I'm going to go do the Malibu Triathlon in next to Pepperdine, where I can go have a homecoming of sorts of my own and visit my friends down there and go chase J-Lo around, Zuma Beach for a morning.
Good.
That was the whole thing. It was like, just get fit and chase J-Lo around.
And we're going to get into your accident, but when you were right before the accident, how good were you?
I was a middle of the pack age grouper at best, meaning like, at triathlons, everyone's broken up by their age group. And I was like average, which is still good because it's a hard sport. Yeah. I mean, I didn't swim, bike or run prior. I didn't swim. I wasn't a swimmer. I wasn't a cyclist, and I was not a runner.
Yeah. So you had to learn these sports.
Yeah.
And get comfortable. So you did for where you started, you did pretty well in triathlon.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's, the cool thing about triathlon is that it's very much an individual sport. Like, you're not out, there's 1% of people who care about where they place. Those are the people who are good, who are professionals. And the rest of us are just out there trying to either cross a finish line or cross a finish line faster than the last time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if there were, like I was middle of the pack. It doesn't matter if there was 100 people in front of you or 100 people behind you. It just doesn't really matter. It's just a reference point of like, oh, okay, so I'm average for my age group, but I did 20 minutes better than last year.
Yeah. That's
the cool thing, is just like, all right, I'm doing better for me. And that's all that really matter. And I'm not 200 pounds anymore.
Yeah.
I literally lost like 4 inches off my waist. I was at like Banana Republic trying on pants. I'm like, oh yeah, I do need help. Can you bring me a 33 waist? Oh no, 32. Oh no, a 31. I remember I took a picture like this. I'm like, it was like a Weight Watchers commercial. I'm like, I fit in a 31-inch waist. Like I don't remember the last time I was anything but a 34, 35.
I think I was a 31 in like junior high, man. It's not, I don't remember those days at all.
Yeah.
Okay. So I like it. Triathlon, a part of your, right, transforming yourself in your 30s. Talk to me about the crash. Talk to me about the accident.
Yeah. So in 2015, I was still, my bankruptcy was like 2010 or something like that. 2015, I'm still trying to figure myself out. And at the beginning of the year, I just, this is what was in my TED Talk, but it was true. I just, on paper, I was like, I need to just simplify and not try to blow it out of the water, like raising $1 million. I need baby steps right now, because, big goals aren't working for me. So I was like, walk my dog, focus on growing my business, and get better at triathlon. And I joined a triathlon club, the Golden Gate Triathlon Club in San Francisco, and they have a training program leading to a middle distance. There's 4 distances of triathlon. The middle one, or the second longest one, and they're known for it. Like, that group becomes a clique, which we did. Like, I finally found my crazies, like my tribe. I lived in San Francisco for like 3 years, and I just, I had friends here and there, but never really felt like I had a group. And almost instantly, like, we became a clique, and to this day, like, we made ourselves kits called the Team Chubby Donut, like, and they're purple and pink. And they're starting to have kids now, and every kid gets a donut pillow, but so we got close, just seeing each other, I don't know, 5 days out of the week in training. And then we did the Wildflower Triathlon. Like, we rented 2 full-size RVs, the Triathlon Club, and they do this every year. And I drove one from literally the Presidio. Like, I had to drive a full-size, whatever the biggest class RV is, like, around San Francisco to the Presidio, load up, and then drive down the coast to San Luis Obispo. And I drove and you
got to be the truck driver you wanted.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was funny because I had like a bunch of 20 something girls in the back of my RV, and the pitch just got to this level where I was like, headphones or something. Like, it started to hurt. And but it was, like, it was awesome. And so we did that, had a good triathlon experience. And then when it was all over, we're like, let's keep going. Let's do a half. Yeah. So we signed up for the Santa Cruz half Ironman triathlon, training even more, twice as much almost. And the weekend before, well, this is a long tail story. The weekend before the Santa Cruz half, we were on a bike ride, like a very famous one, Lucas Valley Road, out to Nicasio, and beyond that and back. It's beautiful. Like, Northern California and Marin is like world class, like some of the best riding in the world. And I could ride out my front door into it and get a 50, 60 mile ride in, and see 5 different, I could see Urban City, Golden Gate Bridge, and then just beautiful, forest out into the ocean. That was my love of cycling. So we were on a 50 mile ride on Labor Day, and we're on a 40 mile ride, and 45 mile ride, mile 40, in this one spot on Lucas Valley Road at the very top right after Big Rock, coming back towards Lucas Valley Ranch, or not Lucas Valley Ranch, Skywalker Ranch. Like literally probably within a mile of the gates. There's this one turn that's infamous and known for people to crash when they're going down it, this turn too fast. And I was my first time riding this hill, and I had no one around me. I was like a third person in the group of like 30. And I was going more than twice as fast as everyone else when I looked at our GPS.
Wow.
And yeah, and I saw it coming. It's deceiving visually. It doesn't look as sharp as it is, but like I hit my brakes too late. I was still upright and made the turn, but my back tire was wobbling because all my weight was in my hands in the front of my bike and pumping my brakes. And I stabilized myself just in time to watch the double yellow lines underneath me go that way and have no ability to control.
Whoa.
And I just, there's like double yellow lines that way. I looked up into trees, and like the road's going there, gravel, nothing, trees, and I'm like, I remember distinctly, only thing I thought was, this is it. Like if you're a cyclist, at some point you're going to fall, you're going to hit a door, an opening door, heaven forbid you get hit by a car. But like, you're going to pay your dues sooner or later, like something's, you're going to do something. And I was like, this is it. This is where I pay my dues as a cyclist, and I don't know if
you think you were going to die in the moment, or you just
I just like, this is it. This is where I'm going to like, I'm going to get an injury from cycling, and we'll see how this goes. Cause this is, it was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I closed my eyes, but I don't remember flying through the air, and I don't remember landing. I just remember like opening my eyes, and I wasn't passed out at all. But like opening my eyes and being flat on my back, and a log being on my left side, and kind of a pile of leaves on this hill, 20 feet down. And I honestly think, cause I honestly think like I did a somersault. Like I came out, head over heels out of my bike. I separated from my bike. My bike was like 10 feet up the hill. I was flat on my back, like no legs bent underneath me or anything like that. But in karate, like you're taught how to fall. And one of the things that you're taught immediately is how to like fall backwards. And you always tuck your chin. You always tuck your chin in to protect your head. And I swear I did, because my helmet has barely any damage to it whatsoever. I still have that helmet.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like on the back side, I had no road rash from like tumbling. I had a few cuts and bruises and whatever, but like, yeah, my helmet was barely damaged, and I was like trying to sit up and I couldn't, and my legs felt super tingly, like they do to this day. And I bet at the time I thought it was adrenaline and everything else, and I was like,
so how did you break the spinal cord? Like what happened?
Well, so like you think I couldn't sit up, and I thought maybe I shouldn't sit up just to be safe. I tried to reach back into my back pocket and grab my phone. I couldn't do that because my phone ended up being 10 feet up the hill. But in the I could feel my legs at that point. I had this weird, super tingly, like falling, like your legs felt like, you're like a limb fell asleep, but times that by 100. And that's what was going on below my, like,
wow.
Yeah. From like my belly button down. Yeah. But it was like in the moment, like there's so much going on. It was just like, all right, and I had never been in the hospital since track in like, I don't know, high school, like for an injury. Mm-hmm. So, this like the idea of like a major problem, like was not in my head. Mm. And I got into the ambulance, or they carried me up on a stretcher, but put me in the ambulance with one ambulance tech. And he was like, it was funny because he was, the short of it is that he said, I definitely had a broken collarbone. Because dude, you have a broken collarbone, you'll be back out in like a month, a couple months, you'll be good.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny, because I was sitting there and I was kind of heaving, and he said, he's checking my vitals and hooking me up. He's like, bro, he literally said, bro, why are you breathing so hard? And I was like, I don't know. And I was calm all the way to the hospital in my breathing. I get to the hospital, they do all the tests, they do all the MRIs and CTs and everything. I had broken collarbone, like from the top down, broken collarbone, cracked most of my ribs on my left side. My left lung was collapsed. and an L1 burst fracture, meaning my L1 vertebrae exploded into like 3 pieces.
So do you think you hit something?
Yeah, I think it was my surgeon said it makes sense when my story about how I fell and how I landed, because a burst fracture takes an incredible amount of energy. And he specifically said, in someone as muscular and dense as you,
yeah.
Like to burst a vertebrae takes an immense amount of energy. And so the fact that like the idea that like I just hit that log in the ground so hard and just right to, for that thing to explode makes the most sense.
I gotcha. Before we get into your understanding what happened and all that, when you were laying there, you weren't with other riders, so how did you get found?
So all my friends were close behind me, but I'm 20 feet down a hill on a curve, and they're all up that hill on the other side, on the other lane, trying to navigate some tenuous turns. And
so did they see you?
No. So there was 2 strangers going uphill. So they were on my side of the road, and I could just watch them from like, I can't do it on the Zoom, but they were like in front of me, and they were just taking the curve around the side. And I called out, they saw me immediately, ditched their bikes and ran down the hill.
Okay. Gotcha.
And they were like, what's up? My phone was ringing. It was my friends calling me. It was like, 5-6 feet above my head.
Yeah.
My bike was up there, and they were just like, dude, what do we do? And they just gave me my phone. I like called 911, and then called my friends.
Yeah.
And
Woof. Okay. So you get some bad information or a bad prediction from the EMT.
Yeah.
You get all the tests done. They realize what's going on. How does the doctor break the news about that vertebrae and the spinal cord injury?
I mean, I feel like I don't exactly remember, but so the thing is,
were you prepared for that news?
Well, no, and I didn't understand the magnitude of it, because I could still feel my legs, and I could barely, but I could move like when they do the test, like bend my knee, can you straighten your leg? I could, not like, like it was tough, but I could. Okay, now move your toes. Can you feel this, that, and the other thing? So like the idea of like, I'm like, I was very present, which is something I was taught in karate in my personal growth journey. It was just like, okay, this is what's going on. Like no conjecture, just what's going on right here, right now, and what's next. No conjecture as to like, oh my gosh, what is this going to mean for the rest of my life? None of that. Just like, all right, so what does that mean? I'm not going to guess. Like, tell me what that means. What's the next step? And I could still move my legs. So I was like, all right, so this is serious. The X factor that I don't talk about a lot, Freck, is that like, I didn't have health insurance. I was one of those healthy 20 to 30 somethings who just never went to the hospital. And I never got the flu, like it wasn't like I was home with a broken finger, not going to the hospital, resisting. It was just like, never had a problem.
Wow.
And so I never had health insurance. Luckily, one of the people with me on my ride, who's a dear friend, one of the Chubby Donuts, she's a lawyer for Blue Shield. And between her and another woman who took over my life, and I'll never forget her, or I'm indebted to her forever for that. Figured out and back they like got me they got me insured.
Kind of like retroactively.
That's what I'm looking for. And so all I was thinking is, this is getting bigger and bigger, and I have no health insurance. And I just took everything in my skill set to just be like, all right, this is the situation. Not freak out, not cry, not whatever. Just
you must have cried though.
I didn't cry until I got home to my parents' house. I moved in with them after rehab. Like, it's kind of funny because someone asked me, because I have a whole blog and I like my friends were doing updates. I started doing updates. I started making them funny. Like, I didn't poop for 2 weeks after my injury. And when I finally did, it took 45 minutes and I lost a couple of nurses and depleted the entire floor of wet wipes and all that stuff. And I wrote a ode to that first poop as a blog, and it's infamous amongst my friends. But I just had fun with it. Like, and a friend of mine said, do you go, like when we leave, do you go cry, yourself to sleep at all? And I was like, no, I haven't. And when they left, I tried to check in with myself before I went to bed that night, and I was alone. They closed the curtains and everyone left and the lights out. And I was like, am I good? Like, am I bottling something? I'm like, no. And I used to make it up. I used to be like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, so I'll give myself a problem, but I was like, I'm not going to, if I have to wait that extra beat and there's nothing there, then there's nothing there, and trust in it and be cool and just be open that if and when I need to cry, I'll cry. So when I got home to my parents' house, literally they laid me on the couch and I was still weak, so things are still crazy, but it was like, I'm at my parents' house in Fresno where I promised myself I would never end up. My dog curled up in my lap. They said, we're going to get groceries. And I was like, fantastic. I just want to lay down. And I lost it.
And what was going through your mind then at that moment?
It sounds so funny. It wasn't so much about, it was my situation, but it was the fact that I was in Fresno at my parents' house and here I am. Like, I was a black sheep in my family in that, like, I was going for it. My family, my siblings, God bless them, they just, my family tends to settle.
I got you.
And I just wasn't going to.
You were that back where
that champagne pocketbook.
You had tried to escape.
And I was like, I'm stuck in my parents' house. I have nowhere else to go. I can't get in my apartment because it has stairs in San Francisco. Yeah, I'm in Fresno living with my parents. Holy cow. This was the definition of failure, in my life.
Wow. I'd like to take a quick break to show you how you can get involved as a volunteer with Angel City Sports.
Are you interested in supporting Angel City Sports? We're seeking volunteers to help organize clinics and events, as well as support our athlete outreach efforts, marketing and media, and even fundraising and development. All skill sets and backgrounds are welcome in support of our mission to provide free adaptive sport opportunities for children, adults, and veterans with physical disabilities or visual impairments. For our younger athletes, we welcome you to join the Angel City Youth Leadership Council. Middle and high school age students are eligible to join the Youth Leadership Council, where you will learn about the disabled community by working side by side with our athletes and acquire important skills such as teamwork, leadership, philanthropy, and event management. To sign up for our volunteer newsletter and stay up to date on all upcoming opportunities, visit angelcitysports.org.
The more days that went by where I was getting like less response from my legs and then none, and then it wasn't coming back and no one had an answer. And then, it started to creep in that, like, okay, again, like, this is my goal, but if it looks like this, I'm going to make something of that too. I'm still going to do a triathlon in a year, even if it's even if I'm not walking.
So that was my question. So when you first put that goal out there,
I thought I'd be walking. I thought it would
be upright.
You're on, right back to normal.
As time goes on, that's not feeling as realistic, but you kept the goal and figured you just do it from a chair.
Yeah, I was just like, I Googled wheelchair triathlon, and I screenshot it. I still have a screenshot of a fuzzy picture of Carlos Moleda, 5-time Ironman world champion, who I didn't know that. I was just like, this dude's in a racing chair. He's in Hawaii. I'm like, fantastic. There's a path. I don't have to.
Where did you see the picture of Carlos?
It was just Google it, Google, okay.
That's
what came up. Clicked on the image. Oh, cool. Screenshot, put that in a,
So that's kind of the beginning of your journey in adaptive sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I was like, there's a way. Fantastic. Like, I don't have to create the wheel. I just need to do what other people have already done before me.
Yep.
And again, serendipity in this peer group. One of them works for Alan Shankin, who's on the board of directors for Challenge Athlete Foundation. And she said, hey, my boss is on the board of this nonprofit and wants to talk to you when you're ready, you know? And he's as much like, we always joke that all roads lead through Shank, in Northern California. I mean, he's the Northern California Freck. And, and, you know, he's done this before, and he was being gentle and being like, we want to support you when you're ready. And I was just like, dude, I have a goal. So when would now be a good time?
Yeah. Okay. So did you meet your goal?
Yeah. I did 2 triathlons prior to my 1-year anniversary and 1 after. So like, I mean, I did a fundraiser, like a GoFundMe. And this is just one of those things that I have a lot of lessons about, but like I hesitated because it's a hand cycle is $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. Racing chairs for a good one. And like even a basic racing chair is still like $4,500. And so I need a wetsuit. I just added it all up, you know, and I knew my number was like 17 grand, and it was big. And I was like, I don't want to be a charity case. I had all these, you know, voices in my head telling me, you know, don't do this. And I went to a birthday party with friends from this triathlon club. And one of them said, I told them all this, and they were like, Balucas, shut up. You publish that thing, we will fill it. You need to stop, you know, screwing around. And I was losing like 2 months of training. I lost 2 months. I know I lost 2 months of training time because because that stuff takes a long time to be built, you know? And so I put it out. It was filled within like 6 weeks. I like overfilled. It was like 18 something that I got, you know, and I ordered my stuff, and they literally sent it to San Diego because I was in a camp down there, and they sent it direct to San Diego. I met my stuff fully built, and Carlos Moleda, who was the coach, you know, it was like after that I figured out that this image that will forever be my entry point. I met the guy, and he was the coach, and he was teaching us how to do this, paratriathlon. And it was amazing. You know, it was just one of those, another lesson of like, I'd rather know than not know, you know, like I'd rather KNOW, you know, that like I couldn't raise $17,000 than never know and wonder what if. So, but the less for me in my peer group, and there's a lot of, you know, reasons why, but they just destroyed it. I mean, those high school friends who I hadn't talked to in a long time, some of them put in $1,000, and I was like, what?
I've found that generosity as a percent of wealth, income, whatever measure you want, is the generosity is much higher in like middle class, or even at times lower middle class. Like that's, you know, it's surprising because I've done a lot of this kind of fundraising too over the years, and it's super interesting, right? How generous certain people are. And they're not as wealthy, you know, they just, they care and they want to contribute. So that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
You have essentially made it to the elite side of triathlon over the last few years. And you had the honor of qualifying for the Ironman World Championships in Kona. Talk to me about the delay and how you're processing that. It's not unlike the delay of the Tokyo Paralympic Games that a lot of the athletes in our community have gone through. But, you know, how are you feeling with that? And kind of talk to me a little bit about Sacramento.
Yeah. Hearing you say the word elite like that, I'm not an athlete, comes out in me, just as a side note, because like, I will fully disclose that like, I know many athletes that could eat my lunch in triathlon, in Ironman and whatnot, but I'm the one who shows up. You know, I'm still a middle of pack age grouper. It's just, there's far less people here, and I'm the one who puts in the work and shows up. And that's a message I want to put out there of like, you know, it won't happen like that for everybody. But like, when I looked at it, I was like, there's not, you know, in the qualifier for Kona for Ironman World Championships, sometimes there's 5 people, sometimes there's 2, and there's 2 slots there, you know, and all I have to do is cross the finish line. So in 2019, I actually qualified for Kona because there was only 2 of us. My first year where I didn't even finish the race, there was 5 of us. The next year there was 2. So I qualified, but my coach and I both agreed that I wasn't ready for Kona. And you can still go to the half Ironman World Championship. So I did that. And then 2020, it was canceled. And there was like 2020 was canceled and I was going, but there was at least 3 people I knew who were just much better athletes than I. And I was just like, I'm just going to go to see what happens. And then it got canceled. And then in 2021, this year, there's 3 of us. And I actually came in 3rd, which means I don't get to go to Kona. But then the second place person decided he didn't want to. So I got the spot. So like my moral of that little story is that like I put in the work and I showed up. And now I'm an elite athlete, you know, who's qualified for Kona twice. And
that's great.
Yeah. I mean, that's big. I think it's just one of those things I really have it's like, I really want to communicate. Like, it's just so true. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I didn't answer your question.
I've done some triathlons and it's at the smaller distances, it's okay. Cause you can kind of just fake it. But when it gets a little more serious, there's a lot of suffering, on all 3 legs for me, frankly. Why do you do this? What does it give you?
Yeah, it's, you know, I think it was JFK who was talking about the space program. He said, we don't do things because they are easy. We do things because they are hard. You know, and if you think about all the things that came out of the space race for our country, you know, there's a lot of people who are like, this is a waste of money. You know, that's ridiculous. But like, it has inspired so much. You know, it gave us technologies like pens that write upside down, you know, it gave us like Tang, I think, you know, I mean, and I'm joking, but I'm serious. Like there's so much that came out of that venture to put a man on the moon. Like today it's like, yeah, right, whatever. But I mean, 50s and 60s, it's like, you're going to leave Earth, you know, and launch and do it with a computer the size of a building, you know, that has a fraction of the computing power that my iPhone does. Yep. Anyway, point is that like, it's like, I do it cause it's hard. Like, and I am a fan of like the thing that is difficult, that is hard, that you learn a lot in the process. So like, it's an endurance sport, and like the long tail, work hard and accomplish, teaches me a lot. Like when I got hurt and it's like, okay, you're going to have 2 months of rehab and you're probably going to have like 2 years of finding your new normal. You know, I was like, yeah, I got it. I've been doing triathlon for 5 years, you know, and I know what this looks like. You know, I know what it looks like to today suck. It took me an hour and a half to do the Olympic distance swim in Malibu the first year. And the next year I did it more closer to an hour, you know? So like when I was in rehab and I couldn't, like I was sitting upright and I couldn't balance myself. And the task was to balance myself using my arms and my head to keep myself from having to support my head. I couldn't do it. And I was sitting there, my PT, you know, as being, you know, the tough whatever. And she's, you know, it's like, this is what you're going to have to contend with. I'm like, oh, hell no. This is not going to be my life, you know? And then like, you know, or like transferring out of bed, you know, into the wheelchair. Like it was difficult. I couldn't do it without help at first. And then I kind of got it, you know, and it was unstable. Today it's like, yeah. Why? Because repetition and time, and now it's not even a thing I think about. Yeah. And so, you know, I learned that is how life works in triathlon. Today you suck. Today you know, tomorrow you get more comfortable. And actually, if you keep trying, you'll get better. Like swim is my Achilles heel, thorn in my side part. And like, I'm still doing that, like I am way better than I was a year ago. And yet I still am slower by 20 minutes than the guy I'm talking about who eats my lunch at Kona. And now I have another year to shave 10 minutes off of that. Yeah.
All right. Soul searching. This is fast, rapid fire, baby. A fun or interesting fact that I don't know about you.
I used to teach swing dance.
Oh, that's good. Watch out, Rolettes. Here he comes.
Yeah. Swingers was a big movie in college.
Yes, that was a great movie. What has your disability taught you?
That I'm still Rob Balucas. From a wheelchair now.
Related. What have you learned over your journey in life about self-acceptance?
This is not short. I'm going to see if I can make it short. Some people have a real problem with the fact that like they think their nose is too big. And to them, that's as massive in their life as me being in a wheelchair. And it's all relative. Like that person can accept they have a big nose and, shake what their mama gave them anyway in life. And I can do the same with my wheelchair. Like I'm in a wheelchair, but if I'm going to be in a wheelchair, I'm going to rock it. And it's just a decision you make.
Cool. Like that. What would you say you have learned from your most significant failures in life?
That almost like if you've invested right, the people that matter will still love you. I had investors who invested 6 figures with me, who, went through it, but I was amazed that they were like, I remember one came to me and they're like, I made a decision, as far as we can see, it's not your fault. And I still love you. And I was just like, I was blown away. There are people who are closer to me that relationship's gone.
That's incredible. That's a great story.
And same thing with like, I think, I thought of your son's time in, Ezra's time in Tokyo, and the results there. And I was like, I hope that one of the key things that he sees is that the result doesn't matter. And the people that do matter in his life love him even more and will tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that all athletes understand and hear that message as well as they should, but it's a really good message.
Yeah.
What brings you stress?
This triathlon, we didn't answer that question. This ever floating race date for the biggest race of my life. Went from October 7 to February 9 to now like October 9, and it's over a year away now.
I feel your pain.
Yeah.
I feel it. All right. Is there a quote or saying that you kind of live by or that keeps you grounded or you think of frequently?
I mean, there's so many.
You're kind of a water fountain of these kinds.
Yeah. I expose myself to so much. I can pick them out situationally at this point, but one of my favorites, I guess, would be the main thing is keep the main thing. Like what I just said about Ezra, like high jump is great, but like being, having people and being, like being in the flow of like love, people who love you, you're loving people, like that doesn't change.
Yeah.
And to keep that like at the center is like, if I didn't cross the finish line or if I didn't qualify for Kona, I'm still Rob Balucas. I can still make an impact. I can still do something. The people who love me will still love me.
Yeah. His sentence that he said on this show is impact over medals. Impact is more important than medals. And so I got to remind him that at some point in Tokyo. Okay. What's your passion?
My passion is just, I thought I had an answer to this question because I've been listening to this podcast. It's just that like, it's not so much achievement as it is just like sucking the marrow out of life. Like no matter, I started midway low. There's people who started much lower than me. But everyone, regardless of that, can like find something, do something. I came from a relatively difficult situation, and it's like I have nothing to lose, like I can go back to that station in life and be miserable, and no one would have ever thought any more of less of me, so now it's just like Ironman World. It's just like, I'm going to do the Ironman World Championships. I'm going to make that a goal. I'm not that good, but there's a chance.
Let's go. Just keep trimming that swim time. You'll be good.
Exactly.
All right. Final real question. I guess I got sort of two questions in here, which is there anything you want to drop for the audience, for the listeners? Any final thoughts, words of wisdom, people you want to give shout outs to, you didn't mention already, whatever, and then just let everyone know how to reach you, how to find you, how to follow your journey.
The big thing, especially these days, is that like hope is a decision. You and I they were doing this exercise and asking like, what is what makes you happy, or what is happiness, I think was the question. And you had to talk for 15 minutes. And mine was like, happiness is a state of being, not a destination or a reward or a thing that you achieve. Like it's a decision you make to find happiness no matter where you are, and how to create more of it. But it's a state of being that you bring to the table. It's not a thing you have. It's not a thing you do. It's a thing you be. And same thing with like, all of us that are aspiring para athletes. It's like, have hope, find a way, just be relentless. The only reason have accomplished this thing is because I'm just relentless.
I say this sometimes when talking about nonprofit stuff. It's like, I'm just not going away. I'm just going to keep just grinding, staying here, because when life gets tough, right? You just got to keep moving.
Yeah. I constantly am like getting off the phone, not constantly, but I'm like, ooh, did I ask too much? Like, was that inappropriate? I don't know. I can fix that, I can fix that, but it's like, I'd rather know than not know, or not, I'd rather have a no than not know.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. How can people find you?
Google Rob Balucas, everything, every handle on everything, my website, Instagram, Facebook, primarily Instagram. It's Rob Balucas is my handle.
Our next episode is with Sarah Kirwan, a longtime disability advocate and adaptive sports leader here in Southern California. Sarah is particularly passionate about women and girls playing wheelchair basketball. Tune in to hear her great story.